find in the base that in this period of time of Sfirat HaOmer, 24,000 Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva died, were nifter. And the reason, says the Gemara, "Mipnei sheloi nohagu kovoid zeh bo zeh." They weren't respectful to each other. The Heilige Rebbe of Ruzhin, Rabbi Israel of Ruzhin, I'm sure you all heard about him, was a big tzaddik. This is going back probably 200 years ago. He said an incredible story and a lesson we can learn from. This is the story he said over. There was once two friends that visited the city. Two very, very close friends. They loved each other daily and would do anything for each other. One of the friends was suspected to do something wrong, and the police arrested him, and they had a court case, and it was decided that he's going to be hung. All of a sudden, in the courtroom, the other friend runs in and says, Judge, please leave him alone. It was me. I did it. Kill me instead." And the first friend starts screaming, No, chas v'shalom, it was me. Don't do anything to my friend. It was me who did it. And they started fighting. Each one wanted the judge to kill him. The judge never in his life saw such a scenario. All the policemen gathered around to watch this crazy sight. Two people fighting. Who's guilty? Two people usually fight that each one says the other person is guilty. And here you have two people fighting. The first one is saying, I'm guilty. The second one says, I'm guilty. What's going on over here? He never had such a case. He brought it to the king, and the king right away understood what was going on. He understood these were two close friends. Very close friends. They were both innocent. But they loved each other so dearly, they were willing to die in order to save their friend. And the king gave his verdict as follows. They should both be let free on one condition, that they include me in their friendship. I want to become their friend too. Said the Heilige Rebbe of Ruzhin. The Pasuk says in Parshas Kedoshim, Ve'ohavto l'rei'acha komoicha, love your friend as yourself. Ani Hashem, I am Hashem. What does the beginning of the Pasuk have to do with the end of the Pasuk? Love your friend, I'm Hashem. Says the Rebbe of Ruzhin, according to this story. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the king, sees the love between Yidden, the connection between Yidden, the love we have for each other, he says, Ani Hashem, I want to join this group. You love him, you love him. Ani Hashem, I want to join you together. And what bigger blessing is it than to have HaKadosh Baruch Hu join us? Once we have HaKadosh Baruch Hu with us, we lack nothing, we have everything. And the way for that is through Ahavas Israel, through love, through V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. So we understand how critical and how important is the midah of Ahavas Israel. And we all want to have Ahavas Israel, to love every Yid in the world and see the good in him and appreciate him. But, and here comes the big but, one can say, how could I possibly love him? I know my friend close up. I know his issues. I know his problems. I know I've seen him in different scenarios where he didn't act the right way, and it's hard for me to love him. Many times he said hurtful words to me. Many times I saw him not behaving the correct way. How could I possibly ignore all that? I'm not blind. And imagine I didn't see all of that and just love him. It's easier said than done. We all know how hard this is. The Baal Shem Tov said you need to love a Yid that you've never met as much as you love a Yid that you personally know. I once said that nowadays, probably the Baal Shem Tov would have said the opposite. You need to love a Yid that you do know as much as you love a Yid that you never met. It's much easier to love a Yid that you never met. He's just another Yid in China, in Australia, but a Yid that you know. And you've seen him in different scenarios. And you've been affected by his bad midos. How could you possibly love him? This is a very tough question that needs to be addressed. So there's a couple of answers, and I would like to speak them through step by step, one deeper than another. First of all, we have the answer in the Pasuk itself. Ve'ohavta l're'acha. Love your friend, says the Torah in Parshas Kedoshim. How should I love my friend? I know him with all his problems. How could I possibly love him? The Torah continues. Ve'ohavta l're'acha kamoicha, just like yourself. Everyone in the world loves himself. Someone who doesn't love himself needs a doctor desperately. Everyone loves himself. Me, you, everybody. And we love ourselves although we know of our problems. We've seen ourselves with bad midos. We've seen ourselves with problems, with wrong behavior, and we still love ourselves. I don't think there exists a person in the world that decided one night, well, today I didn't speak so nice to my friend, today I wasn't so nice to my wife, perhaps I don't deserve supper tonight. I'm going to skip supper tonight. I don't deserve supper. I've never seen such a thing. People know they did wrong, and people regret doing wrong, and they still love themselves. They still make sure they get a good night's sleep, and a good supper, and a good cup of coffee in the morning. People still love themselves, no matter what. It says the Torah, v'ahavta l're'acha, love your friend with all his chisronot and problems, kamoicha, just like you love yourself, albeit you know of all your chisronot and problems. Kamoicha. That's one point. But if we think deeper into this, I think we can understand this on a much better level. Why does a person love himself and feel how choshev and how important and how good he is, even though he sees time and again how many times he acts right, he acts wrong, and how many things he doesn't do right? We all know we are lacking, right? We have a lot to work on our midos. We have a lot to work on our Torah, on our tefillah, on our emunah. We have a lot of work in front of us. We have a lot of places to grow. And we still love ourselves and feel how great we are and how good we are. What's pshat? How do we understand this interesting phenomenon? People see themselves. They see themselves with all the blemishes and still think that they're wonderful people. How does that work? The answer is very simple. Every person in the world views himself as a good person. And this is a fact. You can ask a murderer, you can ask any person in prison, they view themselves as a good person. You'll ask him, you did this, you stole, you killed. Well, that was a temporary thing. It was a one-time thing. It's not who I really am. My real eternal being is good. It was a temporary thing, an occasion that happened that I acted wrong. I'm not be'etzem, essentially a bad person. That's the way we think about ourselves. It's natural. The exact same thing we should think on our friends. It's not fair. It's not right. When it comes to me, I'm really a good person, and occasionally I make mistakes. When it comes to my friend, he's really a bad person, And occasionally he does good things. Why is that right? It's logically not right. Love your friend like yourself means just like when it comes to yourself. You understand that you're essentially good. And the bad and the ra and the problems and the chatoim and the aveiros are all temporary, are all b'mikre, are all by the way occasionally. It's not who I really am. In the exact same note, love your friend, view your friend in the same light. He's essentially good. He has an issue. He says something wrong. Occasionally he does something wrong. But he's still essentially good, just like you view yourself. That's one akudah, how we can look away from other people's problems and still love them, just like komoicho, just like we love ourselves, albeit all of our issues. But there's an additional depth to this. Let's go even deeper. Let me share a story with you. 10 years ago, I moved to Los Angeles. Before that, I lived in Eretz Israel in a little city called Beitar Illit. It's a shtetl, a very nice city. I enjoyed it very much over there. It was a very beautiful place. In Beitar, they have almost no one owns a car, so people go around with autobusim, with buses. So I'm sitting on the bus and schmoozing with a friend of mine by the name of Shmuel Glick. So me and Reb Shmuel are schmoozing, discussing. All of a sudden, a boy comes up, a boy 13 years old, and I see him wave to Reb Shmuel. So Reb Shmuel goes over to him, and he starts schmoozing with him. How are you? And the boy takes out a pocket from his suit and shows it to Reb Shmuel. And I see Reb Shmuel is fascinated and in shock. Okay. They finish talking. Reb Shmuel comes back to sit next to me, and I tell him, I saw something was going on. Maybe you want to share with me what happened? So Reb Shmuel tells me, Shloimeh, you won't believe what just happened. Please, tell me. This boy you just saw was a student of mine in Chazon Yecheskel. Chazon Yecheskel is a village in Eretz Israel, in Darom, in South Eretz Israel. And this friend of mine, Reb Shmuel, used to live in Chazon Yecheskel, and this boy used to live there too. And he was his Rebbe in school. 7 years ago, he graduated my class in Chazon Yecheskel, says Reb Shmuel. And before the boy graduated, I gave him a little note. On the note, I wrote as follows. To my dear student, I want you to know how much Rebbe appreciates you and knows your hard work and acknowledges how hard you work. Continue growing. Remember the tremendous koyach, the tremendous abilities you have, and light up Klal Yisrael. Be a light and an or for Klal Yisrael. Since then, says Reb Shmuel, I didn't see this student. I met him now after 7 years. I moved away to Beitar Illit. He moved. We didn't meet. 7 years later now, I just met him. And guess what he took out of his pocket? That note that he received from me 7 years ago. And he told me, Rebbe, I've been carrying around this note for the last 7 years. 7 years, wherever I went. How do we understand this story? Why was this boy walking around with this note in his pocket for 7 years? You know why? Every person needs acknowledgement, needs appreciation, needs recognition. We need it like we need oxygen to breathe. Every person in the world. Whether he knows about it or not. He needs it. It's what enables us to go through challenges successfully. It enables us to grow. It enables us to continue and overcome the obstacles of life. We need recognition in our abilities. And listen to this. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives a person, a nisoyon, a challenge, that is a note of recognition that Hashem gave us. Hashem doesn't give challenges to everybody. He doesn't give challenges to animals. He gives challenges to people who he knows and believes in. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me a challenge, gave you a challenge, gave anybody any type of challenge, in a shidduch, in parnasseh, in chinuch, in health, any type of challenge, it means HaKadosh Baruch Hu believes in me. He believes in you. He gave you the challenge. He thinks you can overcome this. That recognition should give us the ability and the power and the strength to overcome the challenge. When I see my friend having a challenge, sometimes he overcomes it, sometimes he doesn't overcome it. I see my friend with all his problems, with his chisaron, with his blemishes, but all that comes from his challenges. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave my friend so many challenges, that proves that HaKadosh Baruch Hu believes in my friend. He thinks my friend is a good person. He believes my friend can overcome. How can I not like my friend? Think about it. Most times we have a hard time loving someone. It's because we see his problems, because we see him talk in a mean way. All of these problems our friend has comes from challenges in life. And if he has challenges in life, that's recognition from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a mind blower if you think about it. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives someone challenges, that's the note of recognition. You should dance and be excited with the challenge, because that shows how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu believes in you. And if my friend has challenges, HaKadosh Baruch Hu believes in him. And if Hashem, who knows everybody, inside out, better than any therapist and better than any person in the world, knows himself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu recognizes his abilities and acknowledges his abilities, how can I not give him recognition and see his good and see his abilities? ואהבת לרעך כמוך. And let's go with another twist. I once heard from a famous speaker in Canada, Rabbi Moshe Kanner Shlita. He said over that he once gave a speech somewhere, and he by that speech that he gave, he mentioned the word of Rabbi Levi Yitzchok of Barditchev Zeichet Tzadik Livrocha, who was extremely famous for his ahavas Israel to every Yid, no matter what. And Rabbi Levi Yitzchok asks, how is it that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hashem, who loves every Yid, says, I'll never forget the Chet HaEgel. He tells us in Parshas Kisisa, by the Chet, by the sin of the golden calf, they'll remember it. That always, all the generations, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will remember the Chet of the Egel. How is that possible? HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us like children. We did tshuva. He accepted the tshuva. Why isn't HaKadosh Baruch Hu erasing the Chet HaEgel? And Rabbi Yitzchak of Baditchev said, an incredible word. And it's a life-changing. He said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will forgive us on the Egel. We did tshuva, he'll accept the tshuva. There's one thing about the Egel that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will remember, and that's a positive thing. That's a Rabbi Yitzchak Baditchev's Chiddush. What's positive about the Egel? What's positive is as follows. HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw Yidden, saw the Jewish people by Kabbalas HaTorah in the most beautiful state. People became like Malachim, like angels, standing on the foot of Har Sinai and receiving the Torah with Mesiras Nefesh, with such happiness, with such sincerity. But he wasn't very impressed by that. Obviously, these are children of Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. How else should they act? Isn't it natural that they should serve Hashem day and night? These are children of Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. Who are our fathers? Who are our mothers? Obviously, naturally, we're supposed to be that way. What's the chiddush? But when HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw 40 days later that Klal Israel, the Jewish nation, made the Chet HaEgel, he realized that we are people with a big Yetzer Hara, with a tremendous evil inclination. We have a pull to do bad. And if so, the fact that we were misgaber on ourselves and we subjugated ourselves by Har Sinai to Kabbalas HaTorah to receive the Torah with all its laws, that's greatness. That's not self-understood anymore. That's not so natural for people with an evil inclination. That's a chidush. That's impressive. HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed, kivyochel, so to speak, his view on our Kabbalas HaTorah. It became a much, much more tremendous occasion when he realized that we still had the Yetzer Hara to do an Egel, and still we were mekabel the Torah. That's what Hashem remembers about the Chet HaEgel, says Rabbi Yitzchak of Baditchev. He remembers how human we are. He remembers our animalistic parts, our pull to bad, to do wrong. And therefore he appreciates much more our goodness. So Rabbi Kanner told me that he said over this speech, this word of Rabbi Yitzchak of Baditchev by his speech. And he added, Rabbi Kanner added a beautiful thought to this. And he says, many times you see two people in a fight. Too many times. And you ask Reuven, why are you so upset at Shimon? Didn't you see that Shimon tried appeasing you, tried being nice to you? So Reuven says, well, he tried being nice sometimes, but then he, in 1 minute, when he had an outburst, that's when the emes, the truth, came out, and that's when the ugly face emerged, and he spoke to me in such a mean way, and therefore all the good he did to me was nothing. These are things that happen every day. Me and you, we all know people like this. We all know stories like this. Said Rabbi Kanner, change your perspective. You got to change your prescription. You thought that he's a malach, he's an angel, he's always acting nicely. One time you saw that he's a human being, he failed. That shows that all those 25 times where he acted nicely, it was although he was a human being. And although he had a chelek hara, he had a struggle, 25 times he was miskaber. Appreciate that much more. Just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu appreciates our Kabbalas HaTorah, our willing to receive the Torah even more, because he saw us do the Chet HaEgel. In the same vein, appreciate your friend's goodness. Appreciate his miles. Appreciate his good parts even more when you see him have something bad, when you see him do something wrong. Because that shows that he is a human being, and he could make mistakes, and he has a struggle, and even though, and nevertheless, he's miskaber so many times. This is a mind blower. Think about this. This is a life-changing thought. It means don't look away from your friend's chisronot, from your friend's blemishes, and see only the good. Much more than that. Take your friend's chisronot and realize that because although he's a person with hardships, although he has a hard time to be misgaber, although he has chisronot, and we all have chisronot, so many times he's misgaber, so many times he wins and he tries to do the right thing. Appreciate that much more. And that's a new deher, a new depth in V'ahavta l're'acha kamocha ani Hashem. Love your friend, just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes all our chisronot, all our problems, all our mistakes, and turns them into a positive thing, like Rabbi Luria said, because he recognizes that although we make mistakes and although we're human beings, so many times we're miskaber and we elevate ourselves and we do the right thing. The same thing, the same attribute, the same perspective you should have on your friend. And Rabbi Kenneth told me, after that speech, a Yid came over to him and he told him, Rabbi, I'm going to fight with my brother over inheritance, over money. And we didn't talk for 4 years, we didn't talk. It was an ugly fight. The family was ripped into two. But when I hear this, I'm changing my attribute. I'm changing my perspective. I'm going to reconsider the whole issue. I know my brother made mistakes, but so many times he didn't do mistakes. So many times he tried to do the right thing, and he's a human being, and he has hardships, and although he makes mistakes, and because he makes the mistakes, I recognize how much greater he is every time that he's miscovered. And one final story mentioned in the book of Simon Wiesenthal, which was a famous Nazi hunter. There's a center in Los Angeles in his memory. And he writes that when he was in the camps, in the concentration camps, there was a gathering of Yidden that gathered on Rosh Hashanah to daven. He didn't want to join the davening. Why is that? He felt horrified. Why? Because there was one person only that had a machzor. And people begged him, please, my friend, I would love to say a piece. Let me say on a Sana Toikev. Let me say Malchi Zechroines Shoifrois. Let me say a piece of davening. I beg you. And this fellow seemingly nasty fellow, said, if you want to say something from my machzer, you got to give me a piece of bread, your daily ratio that you got today. And he stood with a sack, and 200 people stood in the line and threw in slices of bread, meager slices of bread that they earned in order to say a piece of his machzer. And Simon Wiesenthal said, I didn't want to join them. I was horrified. Oh, how can I join such people who are so ugly, who take away 200 pieces of bread from Yidden who suffer, who are hungry, who are hard-working laborers? How can I join that? And Simon Wiesenthal writes, eventually he met up with Rabbi Luria Silver, the Rav of Cincinnati, who was the famous rabbi. He served as a chaplain afterwards. He went around to the DP camps after liberation to be mechazik and to bring food. And Simon says, I said this to Rabbi Silver. And Rabbi Silver jumped up and he said, Mi ka'amcha Yisrael, how wonderful and how beautiful is Klal Yisrael. And I said, what? Beautiful? Wonderful? And he said, yes. Why are you focusing on this one bad person? Look at 200 people who had such love to Hashem. They were willing to give away the meager piece of bread to say a piece of a machzor. Mi ka'amcha Yisrael. It's a wonderful nation. Why are you viewing the one person? View the 200 wonderful angels that were there. My dear friends, every person we look at has in him one ugly part, usually. Because we're human beings. We have things to work on. Everybody. He has a part that's greedy, that's taking, that's demanding. Like this Yid who stood with a sack and took 200 pieces of bread from people. But the same person has 200 angels inside him. In himself, he has 200 other things that are wonderful midos, beautiful attributes. Take the approach of Rabbi Silver. Don't focus on the part that's greedy, on the ugly part of him. Focus on the part that's giving, that's willing to be moise nefesh to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's giving away the piece of bread to say a piece of a machzor, that's trying, that's struggling, that's growing. Look on his good part and you'll love him. So to sum up, we spoke about the ahavat Israel, which is the avodah of Sfira Sa'ima, of these days we're standing in. We spoke about how when HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees Yidden love each other, He wants to join us and bring all the blessings upon us. We spoke how to face the problem, how to confront the problem, that I know the chisronot and the problems of my friend. How can I still love him albeit all his issues? And the answer was, first of all, kamoicha, just like yourself. Second of all, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him all those nisyonos, all those hardships, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu believes in him. And if Hashem believes in him, you should believe in him too and appreciate him. And third, we said, take all these chisronot and turn it upside down, turn it into a mile, turn it into a positive thing. Realize how although he's human and although he has issues, so many times he's miskaber and overcomes them. And fourth, we said, be like Rabbi Silver, that doesn't see the one bad part in the picture, rather sees the larger part of the picture, the 200 Yidden who are moise nefesh. And be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach, if we will work on this midah, of developing true ahavas Israel, non-judgmental love, to love and appreciate every yid. Yes, even the neighbor who sometimes parks in your driveway, and even the friend in shul who sometimes takes your parking spot and sometimes sits on your place. Even those people close to you who sometimes get on your nerves, and you see them in different situations that aren't the most positive. If we will work to really love them and only love them, look away from everything else, we'll become a Am Echad, a united nation. And when there's Achdus, we'll have the Geula Shlema. Because Rabbi Elimelech of Lezhensk, the Noam Elimelech says, and I'll finish with this, that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu focuses on the individual people have issues, have chataim, have sins, have things they need to work on. But Klal Yisrael, generally speaking, is always tahir, is always pure. So as long as me and you and everybody is an individual, how could Mashiach come? He sees us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks down and he sees the individual people with their problems. They're not really ready for Mashiach. But when HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees Achdus, oneness, as a Klal Yisrael, we are clean, we are holy, we are special. As a general, as a united Klal Yisrael, we are ready and muchon u'mezumon to bias HaMashiach tzidkenu b'mheira v'yomeinu, amen, speedily in our days. Thank you.